Pillsbury Company. So now we're going to talk about origin, right? So Pillsbury Company in the U.S., Army, and NASA, they develop HACCP in response to food safety requirements for the space program, actually, which is very interesting. So, a lot of requirements were needed for talk about trying to, finding an answer to the question. When you ask the right questions, you get some good answers, and you see what's possible. It's all about asking the right questions. And we asked ourselves, can we go to space? And the answer was, yeah, well, of course you can go to space, but you got to eat. And it's like, okay, well, if we eat, how do we make sure that the food is still at a point where we're not incurring any illnesses, right? I don't want to go to space, spend all this time, all this energy, all these resources, and we mess around and got the food so we don't starve, but we run into a foodborne illness because we can't preserve our food. So that's what happened. And we found out that, essentially, at the end of the end product testing was ineffective. So basically, we tested some samples and we were not happy with the results when it comes to contamination with salmonella. That didn't give us enough confidence that we were able to take flight, and that was an issue for us. So then we adopted the modes of failure concept to production of foods. And what is that? Basically, modes of failure just talks about, how many ways can we fail? And that's the first question, so that we can, reverse engineer, understand how we can work those out, right? So original HACCP principles here is the identify the hazards, chemical, biological, physical hazards, determine the critical control points associated with those. How do we put the systems, the critical control points, the points on the system along the process in order to catch that stuff? How do we control it? Then we establish systems to monitor it, because now that we know how to control it, now we've put the systems in place. How do we monitor that stuff to make sure that it's working all the time, right? Because we know, like anything else, a system breaks. So we have to have a management system, a monitoring system behind it, or a monitoring process, as a part of the system, such that we're managing that stuff. So early on, the use of HACCP was in, FDA inspections. Once again, we used it in, the flight of NASA and some large food companies. We started with the low acid and acidified canned foods. Once again, preservatives, right? We needed to find a way to feed people, that didn't cause any biological issues. So evaluating the role of micro and criteria for food and food ingredients, that happened in 1985 by the National Academy of Sciences. And in 1985, it was basically our first endorsement of HACCP. So recommended by the regulators and industries to say, you know what, this is the most efficient and effective way to ensure the food safety supply. This doesn't need to just go to NASA out of space. We need this everywhere, not in the U.S., not in just in the UK, not just in Russia, not just in China. We need this everywhere. We need to implement this kind of stuff so that we can decrease the number of deaths caused by food safety. And so, fast forward, they're moving on. They changed the group to National Advisory Committee of Micro Criteria for Foods, and they moved on and adopted a document describing the 7 principles and a systematic approach for the application of HACCP to food production. So, moving on, they changed the name, they're adopting these principles, and things are happening essentially, right? So we're recognizing, we're getting more information, people doing research. Then we got Codex Online, Alimentarius Committee of Food Hygiene, which is, actively involved. They're working, refining. We got all these revisions, right? And the most recent revision was in 2003. But work is happening. Remember, I telling you about the working document. This is a working document not only in your facilities to like manage your stuff, but as things happen, we need to add on to our HACCP requirements, right, for ourselves, and the regulations. Regulations change over time, and so that's why it changes. And we just need to keep up. But the basics usually stay the same. And so HACCP is mandatory in the U.S. for fish and fishery products, meat and poultry products, and juice products. But I vow to say, once again, HACCP is used, the principles at least are used in pretty much every facility, because if you do not have those basics, the principles, then you're in deep doo doo when it comes to working through an issue, identifying an issue, figuring out how to manage it. Not, I mean, from a human safety, food safety standpoint, but also from like a financial standpoint. Like HACCP is an amazing methodology, right? And so you probably will see some similarities of HACCP, not only, in your home facility, but also in your home, your life, right? And so we'll find out more about that later. But yeah, so then international, once again, it's not just the U.S. EU mandates that all food businesses operate and implement the procedures based on HACCP principles, um, and it just keeps going. So basically, everyone that makes food is adopted some form of these HACCP principles, and that's what you need to know. And this is why you're learning this stuff today. You are a very critical, essential body of knowledge. After you get this certification, you're going to understand some stuff that a lot of people don't understand. They don't realize the reason why they have so much confidence in eating at their table with their kids, with their spouses, is because of HACCP. Like, that's it. It's because of HACCP. You don't worry about getting sick every meal because of HACCP. And that's amazing. All right, so now we move to the next session. Introduction to the hazard analysis and critical control point systems. Before we go though, this is no, I'm sorry. All right, so now we finished introduction to the hazard analysis and critical control point system.